1. For context, I am a white, late-20s female who works in finance. Volunteering for days of caring for my company turned into just volunteer opportunities that I take for myself out of my own time and pleasure. I love helping people, and over the years, I've become a seasoned park ranger assistant for the Christmas at the Zoo event happening all month long in my city. It's been 4 years since I started, and I've gotten along with my colleagues where every year we have new stories of entitlement to share. Last year was no exception, but the level was above and beyond the worst I've seen in all the years I've volunteered. The entitled family consisted of EM, the entitled mother, EA, the entitled aunt, ED, the entitled dad, and EU, the entitled uncle. I only call them uncle and aunt since they were older than the other two who were the parents of the 2-year-olds that caused the lantern incident. So during my first night back after a year, I greeted the other zoo rangers like normal, got my gear and started my shift. Nothing unusual happened, just your typical night at the zoo, filled with Christmas lights, Christmas songs, and food. Now, our zoo also has a license to serve alcohol, which has been a boon for the parents visiting and a headache for park rangers every year during this event. It was maybe halfway through the night when I was roaming around the animal exhibits to watch for any suspicious people, lost kids, or people causing disturbances. Our zoo had light features that changed every year, and my personal favorites were the full-scale animal sculpted lanterns made of fabric and stained glass. Absolutely gorgeous. As I got closer, I saw EM and ED taking pictures of their little girls with the panda lanterns. Nothing crazy was going on until ED put his girls behind the barrier and wanted to take pictures of them riding the panda bear sculpture. "Excuse me, sir, but please do not touch the lanterns and bring your children behind the barrier." Now, to the credit of ED and EM, they looked at me and immediately said sorry, and tried to get their children away from the panda lanterns, until one of the girls screamed and kicked the lantern, knocking a stained glass paw and ripping the side of the panda. I rushed over to look. The kid was all right, but the lantern had some damage from the ripped fabric. The stained glass paw had been knocked off, but was thankfully intact. The lanterns weren't cheap, and as per policy, we needed to jot it down as an incident and record the damage. The ED looked wide-eyed at me and just said, "It was like that when we got here." Meanwhile, EM drunkenly giggled and said, "Run!" to the little girls back into their wagon before sprinting off without ED. He realized he was being ditched by his baby mama and sprinted off after her. I was just dumbstruck for a few seconds after the ED's comment before calling the rangers on my walkie-talkie. I ran after them to see how far they were, but found them quickly when they met up with 2 other people, the aunt and uncle. This time I turned away from the group and continued to tell the rangers about the lantern incident when the children, once again, crossed the barrier to hug another light structure. Once again I approached the group. "Please get behind the barrier, and please stop touching the lights. You've already been warned once." The entitled uncle moved the girls' hands and tried to take more pictures. "Please take the children away from the light structure. No one is allowed to touch the lanterns." Entitled uncle, in all his ill-tempered, tattooed glory, "They're just kids. Let them have some fun." "Sir, no one is allowed to touch the lights in the zoo. Your kids could get hurt, and we were just trying to make this a safe and enjoyable holiday for everyone." "Yeah? Well, you're ruining our holiday by following us like a creep." After the group finished shouting some more obscenities and taking the kids away, I decided to create some distance between me and the group, to call the rangers and inform them of the situation. Several other volunteers and rangers noticed their activity throughout the park that night, and were continuously monitoring them as I went about my shifts. Toward the end of a path, making my way to my next shift, I came across the entitled group with a few seasoned park rangers, an upset group of guests, onlookers, and a police officer. I went over to some of the other volunteers to get the scoop. Apparently, the entitled group had not only tried to jump on more sculptures throughout the zoo, but one of the girls stole a lightsaber and tried to attack another guest kid, sending him to the first aid station. Sure enough, as soon as I got the details from the other volunteers, The entitled dad and entitled uncle saw me and started screaming that it was all my fault for ruining their night. I reported to the officer and rangers of the previous event I called in about. Considering the observed behavior and the clear witness accounts of other staff with guests, it was clear who was in the wrong. The rest of the night, I got to take a roller coaster or a golf cart back to the ranger station to spend the remainder of my last shift, eating leftover free pizza, and drafting my statement on Word with the police and zoo officials, asking constant questions I kept repeating answers to. After all was said and done, it turned out that the entitled group had been part of a company's early access party to the zoo that night. So the entitled dad and entitled uncle had been reported to their company by the zoo, and the other company employee had confronted them through their HR about the assault on their child. With the help of the police, the group was set to be banned from the zoo. No news if they paid for the damages to the lanterns, however. Suffice to say, I'm happy this year wasn't as eventful, and I now understand why the veteran rangers don't want to see any action when they are on patrol most nights. Now I just hope my other volunteer shifts are silent nights from here on out. 2. I had just arrived at my all-time favorite Mediterranean buffet. It's a family-owned restaurant with a very cozy atmosphere, almost always near full capacity whenever I visit for dinner, filled to the brim with heartwarming foods that you can count on to give you your money's worth any day of the week. If you want to imagine how good the smells and tastes are, just imagine yourself taking a bite of the best freshly prepared Slovakia you've ever had, and add 20% to that for good measure. I myself just happened to be standing patiently in line for some mouth-watering home-style hummus. To get to my mashed chickpea prize, I entered a sizable queue that stood adjacent to a serving aisle, measuring about 12 feet in length and spaced apart just wide enough for two people standing elbow to elbow. It didn't take long for everyone else to collect their favorite victuals, and because it was standard first in and out, I soon found myself seemingly left alone to meticulously measure out my daily allotment of blended dip. At this point, I think my peripheral vision did spot a figure moving towards my general direction, which I obviously paid no mind since it's a packed eatery. However, upon turning around to get my next mouth target, I did take a second to observe what was moving at an apparently very brisk pace towards me. Directly at me, in fact. I was mid-stride when my monkey brain registered the bare essential details of this unidentified moving object. Middle-aged, balding, kinda squat, definitely a few inches below my eye level, clearly not in a mood to smell any roses, probably needs a bathroom or something. What happened next, in the span of 1 to 2 seconds, the play-by-play I'm about to give should be construed as figurative feelings and not literal thoughts. Wow, he's moving fast. I better make eye contact so we're aware of each other. He's not making eye contact. Maybe I should move to evade him. Actually, I'll stand still so we don't accidentally collide or end up doing the mirror dance. He's still moving fast. No way he can see me right— Oh, shit! A hand moved out of nowhere. There was an audible, surprised grasping grunt. A dollop of hummus actually managed to jump from the plate in my left hand onto my thumb. It took me a couple of heartbeats to realize that I had forcibly halted this UMO with my right hand in an actual stop motion.
"The hell's your problem?"
erupted from the uncanny match for an ostrich. To which I replied, "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see me." He in turn said,
"I'm not playing, you fucking idiot. Why didn't you move?"
I'm not gonna lie, it took me a moment to process what he just said. So not only was he not being distracted by a phone or a pair of melons, not only was I holding so still that a deceased wide receiver could get around me, but he clearly knew I was directly in front of him and kept going full-on Titanic anyway. Were you expecting me to?" I questioned. This wasn't rhetorical either. I had to confirm what his actual thought process was, if there was any. Surely he didn't expect a complete stranger to see him move out of the way and bow like a servant. Or perhaps he conflated his girth with his height and figured others would naturally maneuver around him, like some half-giant at the train station. In either case, my curiosity was quickly dashed as this unabashed and mentally obstructed creature launched into a mad tirade of insults, curses, and a few "you people" here and there, which was single-handedly dialing down the ambient chatter in the whole restaurant. Not wanting to escalate this any further, I simply stood there and waited while keeping my posture as neutral as possible with a sad plate of hummus. Finally, after this half-minute eternity of abuse, UMO pivoted to get around me, about time, and clapped off his diatribe with one more and rather dramatic-sounding
"Fucking idiot!"
Sir, I don't think you're an idiot. I can't exactly give a play-by-play on what happened next because, at this point, I was already amped up from adrenaline and reacted on pure instinct. What I can say with certainty, though, is that a plate of hummus flew halfway across the room behind me. Thankfully, it didn't hit anyone. A couple of restaurant staff intervened to restrain me, and UMO was sprawled on the floor to his side. In all honesty, I was at the time trying to follow what I had been taught on de-escalating a verbal conflict, part of which is to affirm that any ill will from the verbal attack isn't mutual. I was trying to tell UMO, even if you hate me and want something bad to happen to me right now, I honestly don't feel or want the same for you. Only in hindsight do I realize that UMO was so enraged that he actually misconstrued my words to mean something along the lines of, "I know you are, but what am I?" Resulting in UMO throwing a sudden but telegraphed right hook. I'm guessing the less than sincere "sir" didn't help any. In the end, the authorities weren't called, but I was asked to leave for that evening. No refund needed since customers only pay after they've eaten. UMO was fine as far as everyone could tell. Just had to ice some bruises from the fall first, before he presumably was asked to leave too. I know most are here to get a justice boner of some kind, but frankly, I choose to believe this guy either has anger management issues or he was just having a really bad day before the holidays. At least I wasn't banned from the restaurant, and the only thing I have to deal with is a bruised forearm. Oh, and not getting to eat my hummus in the end. That sucks too. 3. Little background. My uncle, 52 years old, loves photography and owns and runs a studio from his house. The house is a 2-story building with the studio in the ground floor and a 2-bedroom apartment in the first floor. He lives with his wife and daughter. Currently, his business has taken a blow due to the pandemic, and as well as the new generation phone. Everybody has a camera nowadays, so who needs a photographer? Still, my uncle earns enough to get by for his family. He is a very sweet guy, and even though money is short, he's made a lot of friends in the community. He is one of the 3 children of my grandparents. My mother, 54 years old, the eldest, and the youngest sister, 48 years old, who is the entitled Karen of this story. The youngest sister has always been the golden child to my grandparents, and has been spoilt to the core. From childhood, she gets everything she wants. My uncle wanted to study law, but my grandparents spent all the funds for his college for Karen's marriage. In my country, it is expected that the male child of the family will care for his parents while the female child goes to her husband's family. The story. Even though my grandparents stayed with my uncle, my grandpa kept sending money each month to Karen, which she spent on clothes and makeup, only keeping some amount for himself just for food, which he refused to share with my uncle and his wife and daughter. The house belonged to my grandmother. When she died in 2018, she gave the house to my uncle and some money to my mother and aunt, and my aunt convinced Grandpa to come live with her. On the pretext of caring for him, she wanted to mooch off Grandpa's pension amount. My uncle, being a smartass, made my grandpa sign an affidavit that he is willingly going to his own daughter's house and is not kicked out. After that, my uncle and mother went no contact with the sister and father. After a few months, suddenly, one morning, my uncle was startled by continuous loud banging at the door. He went to the window to check, to find Karen, who was demanding to be let in, screaming at the top of her lungs that this is her house. I guess she was on crack or something. My uncle laughed and told her to fuck off, so she called the cops. The cops, who were also friends of my uncle, came and basically laughed at her and told her to shut up, and was removed from the property. After a few days, my aunt sent an eviction notice to my uncle. There is an attached notice which said that in 2015, 3 years before her death, my grandmother had signed a will to give away the house to my aunt, and hence she is now the owner. If evicted, this would mean that my uncle and his family will not only lose their home, but also their business. After reading the notice multiple times, he noticed the date on which the will was signed and realized something which made him pissed. As I said earlier, even though my uncle had less money, he had lots of friends. He contacted his friend at a local hospital to get data from my grandmother's medical history and records of 2015. After receiving the documents, my uncle hired a lawyer and sent a new notice to my aunt, basically warning her that the will she has sent is a forged document, and if she pursues with the same, it will take legal action against her and send her to jail. You see, my friends, my grandmother couldn't have signed the will on the said date, as during that whole week she had been admitted in the hospital for chest pain, and was heavily sedated and had been barely awake. This shut up my aunt, and to this date, she has never made an attempt to take away the house. She's still entitled, and still mitches off my grandfather's pension amount. Thank you for listening. 4. I am allergic to hand sanitizer, alcohol wipes, generally anything that has alcohol-based products. I even bring my own soap because I can have a reaction to some soaps. I can't even drink the stuff without my lips swelling. My old boss, who was my cousin, so when COVID hit, we didn't really have a problem until my cousin got promoted and got transferred to a new office, and to our new boss. We got a mass email going over our new COVID safety procedures, and one of the new procedures is that we all have to use hand sanitizer and antiseptic wipes. I sent an email to HR telling them about my allergies with medical documents. They sent back saying that I don't have to use the hand sanitizer and antiseptic wipes, and they put it in my file. However, when sent the exact email to my new boss, he replied saying that all employees have to follow the new COVID safety procedures, no exceptions. When I replied that if I use those products, I will need medical assistance. He then sent me another email saying that if any employee doesn't follow new COVID safety procedures correctly, that they would be fired. I sent copies of our emails to our union rep and HR department, to which they replied that they would talk to him and kinda told me to ignore him unless he tries to actually fire me. So I go into work, and my new boss is literally waiting for me at my desk with a bottle of hand sanitizer in his hands, asking me to hold out my hands. I did reply saying, "No thanks, I'd rather not go to hospital today." He got mad and literally grabbed my hand and squirted sanitizer in it, and then rubbed it in, saying, that wasn't so bad." I tried to go to the bathroom to wash it off, but he blocked me. Well, I had a bad reaction. Thank God I had an EpiPen at my desk. My boss kept saying he thought I was lying and kept saying it until I was put into the ambulance and couldn't hear him. A member of the HR department and legal department came to visit me in hospital, probably making sure I didn't sue, and informed me that he was fired. The woman from the HR department also said that they had called the police on my behalf and I should be getting a visit from them soon. I can't talk about that as it's an ongoing investigation. For those wondering, I'm in Australia, so no medical fees. I'm not happy about the EpiPen, $40, they are expensive. Also, cops won't tell me anything, that's frustrating. They did tell me that he's been ordered to stay away from me, so he must be out of jail if he was ordered to stay away, right? I'm still in hospital, hoping to be released today or tomorrow at the latest. 5. For reference, I'm a US Navy vet. This did happen to me when I was on my last year in service. During my time in the service, it was mostly great, but there are times when you WTF. This was one of them. Backstory. This happened on a base somewhere in Virginia, where the base CO, our commanding officer, ordered the MAs, basically military police, that no person can have access to the flight line without a specific sticker along with their IDs. As well, and no personal vehicles passing the gate without a pass as well. Only way a person without a sticker or pass can get through is that they would have to be escorted by someone who does. So this happened on the weekend, back in 2015 or 2016. A lot was going on at the time for me. but I was on temporary duty with the MAs as an armed personnel to perform watch at various posts throughout the base. Well, during this weekend, I was set up in front of some hangars by the flight line. I was in a little guard shack by a gate. An SUV pulled up into the parking lot, and a lady in her mid to late 30s came out and walked up to the gate. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you?" "Good afternoon. I am here to pick up my husband's truck in front of the hangar." "That shouldn't be a problem if you have access to the area. May I see your ID?" "Here you go." She then shows me her ID. The problem here is she doesn't have the sticker I mentioned from earlier, so I cannot let her through. This is also when I realize she is a spouse of an officer. Also, some spouses do have the stickers, but it was not very common. "I apologize, ma'am, but I can't let you through." "Why not?" "What do you mean, I cannot go through?" She's looking confused. "According to your SOP, you cannot have access past the gate." I point to the gate beside us. "You don't have the access sticker to go through." She looks flustered. "I'm just picking up my husband's truck, which is past this gate. Can you let me just go get it? He's currently out on deployment and wanted me to pick it up for him." "No, I cannot do that without the proper access. If your husband was here, then that is no problem." "What command is he from? Maybe I can get an escort for you." She tells me the command's name and I call the number. No one picks up. Tried several times and nothing. At this point, the SUV driver came out asking what is going on, and the lady starts telling her that I won't let her pick up the truck and other stuff. "I'm sorry, but no one is picking up. Can you come back another time just in case?" She's fully angry now. She then called her husband and tells him the story. She then hands me the phone. "This is Officer Exception. I know you're doing your duty, but can you just let my wife get the truck?" "No, sir. According to our base SOP, I cannot do that." He then asked me several things and then re-asked if I can do it anyways. I then get annoyed at this point and told him that her SOPs are from the base commander, and going against it is disobeying his orders. "Are you telling me to disobey an order from the base commander? Is that what you were saying, sir?" He was silent for a moment and then said, "No," almost defeated. I hand back the phone to the lady and reported the situation to my supervisors. They told me I did nothing wrong and let them know the end results. A few minutes later, a second-class petty officer walks by and asked about the situation, as he is waiting inside the gate for his family. I told him of the situation, and he offered to escort her through so she can pick up the truck. I let him as long as he is with her until she leaves. He agreed, and I let her through. A minute later, she's in the truck. I let her out. As she drives past me, she gives me a snarky glare. No big deal. I'm used to it already. Lots of entitled spouses and officers. I reported the results to my supervisors and told me good job, and way to go on staying with the SOP. The rest of the watch went smoothly, and no other incidents happened that day. Don't know what happened afterwards, but I did hear that the commands were retold that no one without the access sticker with their IDs are allowed through, no exceptions. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Idiots in the Wild, episode 44. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do share it around, like, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff. And I believe we have a couple of birthday shoutouts today. So let's sort those out, yeah? Right, the first one goes to Railuge, who you've possibly seen in the Discord if you're a member of the Discord. And I don't know how old Railuge is today, but they're a year older than they were previously. And something about dinosaur videos all month to celebrate their birthday. I will link to their channel so you can go and see the videos they're putting up. I don't know where I'll put it. I'll probably put it before the stories. Okay, and the next shout out goes to, let's see. Next shout out goes to Jess, who is 21 years old on the 11th. And this comes from Lilani. Okay, I hope you folks have great birthdays, and before we go, I'm going to sing happy birthday to you both. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Railuge. Dear Jess, happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and I think we're going to wrap things up there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.